would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to it, folks. Apologies for there not being a show yesterday. I know things have been weird the last couple of weeks. At least now I know why. For those of you who've been listening for a little while, you know that I haven't felt quite right for the last few weeks. And Friday afternoon, it became very clear what the problem was. I'm sort of wrestling with kidney stones. I'm guessing that's why I felt off for a while, and then it finally went into the worst of kidney stones on Friday. I continue to be in the process of romancing the stone, so I promised myself, though, I wanted to sit down and do a show when the pain levels were not unmanageable. So here I am. It's not my first rodeo with kidney stones. A couple of years ago, I had it in the left kidney, and of course, the right kidney got jealous. So now it's that kidney's turn. I'm not sure. That might have been an example of oversharing. I'm not sure. But anyway, so that's where I'm at. I'm not out of the woods yet, but it will pass. It's just a question of when. So, and the greatest news of all is my doctor told me one great way to really just make it happen is to drink a lot. So there's that, which is nice. Thanks for taking the time to be part of the show. If you'd like to get in contact with me, the best way is through the website at the rebelbroker.com. I know we had talked about doing the March drawing on Monday afternoon, yesterday, and I didn't do that. Not just because I was distracted by a great deal of pain, but because it didn't make sense to not have a show that day and then not remind everyone to get to it if they wanted to. So I've gone ahead and extended it to Friday of this week. So if you would like to, and what am I talking about? For those of you who are brand spanking new, we are doing a $50 gift card, Amazon gift card drawing. And in order to get on the list, you need to do me a favor. You need to go to the website, therebelbroker.com. You need to click the big red button at the top of the page titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. Give the same email address both times you're asked. Answer a handful of demographic style questions, and you're done. And you are entered to win. We've already given out $250 to 5 lucky winners. We're going to make it 6 lucky winners this month in March. So please do head on over to therebelbroker.com, click that red button, go through the steps, and you will be in the drawing for this Friday's drawing of the winner of the $50 Amazon gift card. So congratulations to the folks who've won it in the past. Good luck to the folks who are going to be getting their name entered before Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific. Okay, so we'll see how long we go here today. Today's show is one we do every year, where we go down the list of the states that are the most magnetic in terms of drawing people to it, and then we also cover the states at the absolute bottom of the list that nobody wants to go to. I actually find this list kind of interesting, not just because of it being a good way to decide, where do I want to start? If I'm a starting investor and I want to pick states that are drawing the most people, with shifts in population comes shifts in demand for housing, right? That's just a natural byproduct of that immigration. And that's going to be homes for sale for you flippers. And it's also going to be homes for rent for folks who are moving there. And I think that a next step after this, if you decide, yeah, you know what, I want to try to catch a market that is in the process of growing. I want to get to the communities where these people are moving to and invest in them. The next thing would be to try to figure out what percentage of them are renting where they're going and what percentage of them are buying. And you'll want to do some local market homework to figure that out. But this is a great starting point, right? It's one other data point that you can use to decide where you want to start looking first. And if you happen to be lucky enough to be in one of these states that's at the top of the list, well, then great. Then you're all set to go. We will start, as we always do, with the top states for 2016. And then we will talk about the bottom states for 2016, which I think is almost as interesting as the ones that are at the top of the list. This is from Allied Van Lines. Let's see. And what's most interesting about this year's list is we're seeing a state dethroned in terms of being the number one state folks are moving to. It's going to be interesting to try to figure that out. Why is that happening? You could make the argument that things have started to flatten out in terms of jobs, other things we can theorize on it. I don't have any solid answers. But let's go ahead and start running down this list. We'll start at number 10 on the list. Now, number 10 was, number 10 on the list is Washington. Let's see here. That came in 2015. It was number 7. So it was on the top 10 list in 2015, but it has gotten less magnetic, I guess you could say, in 2016, where it's now number 10 on the list. So that's a change of -3 in terms of how much space it moved. Next is Nevada, which is interesting because it was number 10 in 2015. It's number 9 in 2010. So we're actually seeing, in relation to other states where folks are going, right? We're seeing it increasing in terms of desirability. Number 8 on the list is Idaho. In 2015, it was number 12. In 2016, it's number 8. That's an increase of 4. And there's, another thing I want to point out here, how this list can be useful. We'll do it after we cover the top 10, but there is one other way I think that this list can also be very useful. So don't miss that. Georgia comes in at number 7. It was number 11 in 2015, number 7 in 2016. So an increase of 4. So both Georgia and Idaho both saw increases of 4 slots in terms of where they placed on this list. Next, at number 6 is Oregon. Oregon is moving the other direction. Last year in 2015, it was number 11 on the list. This year, it was number 4 on the list. This year, it's number 6. So it has gone down 2 slots on this list in terms of how magnetic it is for folks moving to it. And at number 5, we see Utah. It was number 8 in 2015, number 5 this year in 2016, which is a increase of 3. So it's seen an increase in interest in terms of folks moving to it. North Carolina is interesting. It was at number 9 in 2015. So last year it was also in the top 10. Number 4 this year. So an increase of 5. And with what items we've covered with North Carolina, Charlotte, for example, I think I think we can explain that even if we just kind of do a flashback to shows last year where we explored some of the communities in North Carolina in terms of their desirability, because there were a couple that were showing up on a variety of different lists. So I think North Carolina is an interesting one that kind of jumps out at me for reasons we've talked about here before. Number 3 on the list, and I think this is the one that's going to surprise a lot of people, is Texas. Now, Texas has spent a ton of time at number 1. I don't know how many years, but I mean, I know it's every year I have done this list, Texas has been at the top of it. In 2015, it was number 1. In 2016, it's number 3. So it's not just down 1. It's not a gradual drop. It's down by 2. And you're going to be a little bit amazed, I think, when you hear the states that have replaced it. Now, if I were to ballpark this ahead of time, if I had tried to guesstimate where these various states were going to fall this year versus last year, I absolutely would not have guessed that Texas would drop to. And if someone were to simply tell me Texas dropped to, I would not have guessed that the two states that did end up in the 1 and 2 spots would be the ones that would dethrone Texas. So number 2, Arizona. Last year in 2015, it was number 3, so it's up 1 on the list. And Florida has taken the number 1 spot. It was number 2 last year in 2015. To be honest, if someone were to suggest that, I would have thought Florida would have gone down on the list. Just given some of the news items we've seen, Florida's been a very mixed bag. But a lot of that mixed bag stuff was happening at the higher end in terms of bad stories about Florida. But I think that's interesting. And again, Florida showed up on several lists that we've talked about. I've talked a lot about Arizona. I've talked about Phoenix and Flagstaff and Prescott and all these various cities in Arizona that actually look pretty good. And all the areas that hug Phoenix, right? Phoenix is much more of a metro area than just Phoenix, right? Phoenix is sort of at the heart there, and there's a ton of communities all around it. And remember, we also talked about Phoenix being not the city of Phoenix. Remember, we had 2 or 3 different of those cities we've talked about that are right next to Phoenix. There was one that was directly northeast, one that was southeast, one that was southeast of that community, all within the greater Phoenix area that were all pegged to be at the very top of the list in terms of returns of an investment for landlords and home flippers. So Arizona doesn't surprise me at all. Arizona's on my radar. Right now, Sacramento, which is the only reason it's on my radar, is because its proximity to me. That was one of the communities that also came up on a list that projected good things. Arizona is absolutely on my list. I actually plan a road trip through Arizona to go check out some of these areas. So for me, that's just encouragement to see that there's also folks moving to that area. And there's no question, if we were to go look at the data, that everyone's moving to that greater Phoenix area, Phoenix and the areas surrounding it. So that makes it a little bit easier to focus in on where you want to look. Now, in terms of, and the one thing I wanted to cover, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, what I'd also suggest you do is go down this list and look for the communities with the greatest change, both positive and negative, because I think both of those things can also give you an idea of the velocity, right? And when I say velocity, I simply just mean how quickly some of these areas might be falling out of favor. So we'll talk about that in a second. Quick break. We'll be right back, and we'll jump right back into it. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We are running down the list of magnet states as judged by folks moving in and out, right? It's all focusing on the actual mobility of people. So this one is a little bit less of a leading indicator, right? folks would probably already have arranged to rent or buy a home by the time they actually get into a moving truck. So it's not going to be something that's going to give you a heads up on people going to these areas. The other list that I cover that does sort of give you the over the horizon view is the one where we talk about the Realtor.com report that talks about the most searched areas, or the areas where searches increased the most, right? So that indicates a future action that will take place based on that trend. Buyers are going to buy in those areas because more folks are searching there, right? So that's more of a leading indicator. Now, then there's three ways to look at this. We already covered the top 10 before the break. Now I'm going to run through and I'm going to take a look at some of the states with the biggest changes, both positive and negative, because I think one could be a warning to you if you own property that's an investment in those states. And the other might be, even though it may not be in the top 10, that's a lot of I'm only going to talk about the ones that have double digits, where their position changed by 10 or more on this list. Because a lot of this other stuff was just 1, 2, 3, 4 space changes. But there are some others on this list that made huge jumps, which indicates there may be something else going on that you want to know about if you want to take advantage of something happening in that state. So let's go ahead and run down this list. And the very first one that jumps out at me is Alabama, which was at number 22 in 2015 and comes in at number 12 in 2016. Now that's an improvement of 10. So I'd want to find out what's going on in Alabama that has the desirability of it in terms of it ranking with other states rising so high. What has happened in Alabama? And for those of you who are in Alabama, this may be an opportunity for you to take advantage of what is a increase, whether you want to compare it to other states or not. It's an increase for Alabama in terms of what folks are doing. And remember that it doesn't always need to be the shiniest of the shiny, right? We always tend to cover these top 10 lists, but when you see a dramatic improvement in a ranking like this, you're going to find those diamonds in the rough hidden in the rest of the data. It's why I so often encourage you to really focus in on not just those top 10 and bottom 10 lists, which I do, because unfortunately I can't specify my search for what might interest you. And really, to get that data out that's going to help you, you need to do that search for yourself, see where your locations fit, and see what other information you can pull out of that can help you make a smart investment decision. All right, let's go ahead and jump down this list. The next one is interesting. And this is a kind of conversation that would be good to have over an adult beverage with all of you. Sadly, I don't have a bar big enough. But this is Colorado. It came in at number 6 in 2015, a top 10 state. We were doing nothing but talking about Colorado a year ago in terms of just growth and what was happening in Denver. We had listeners who were telling us it was easy to find an apartment to rent, but just ridiculously hard to get a home to buy. Well, it came in at number 21 on this list. It dropped 15 spaces. That's kind of interesting. What else can we sort of fuel in terms of theories with a change like that? And with all the folks moving, when a state manages to drop from being in the top 10 to being number 21, there's something going on there. Folks are the moving decisions are now making people move somewhere other than Colorado. Now, when people say Colorado, by and large, we're talking about the greater Denver area, maybe Colorado Springs. But I wouldn't be surprised if the other news that we've heard coming out of Denver isn't a part of it. And apparently legalizing pot was not enough of a motivator to get folks to move to Colorado in 2016. It might just be that whole, because this a thing that I would look into more if I was an investor in Colorado or looking to invest in Colorado. What does this say about the real estate market? When you see such, is it one of those deals where folks just simply found that the cost of getting a home there was now so high that making that move to Denver didn't make sense anymore? Staying where they are made more sense, or maybe entertaining that job in another state made more sense, right? Those are the thought processes that go on behind a move. So if that's what's happening, and this is an indication of a trend, What's that going to do to the real estate market in Colorado? I would guess soften it, right? Okay. Next, it came in this year at number 26. Last year, it was number 37. Connecticut moved 11 spaces, improving 11 spaces. I know nothing about Connecticut. I've never been to Connecticut. I don't think anyone has ever asked me to even offer an opinion on a Connecticut market. But there you go. If Connecticut's in your area of interest, it's interesting to note that they've seen a pretty big improvement in the desirability of moving there when compared to other states. Next on this sort of look at the biggest changers, Iowa. Now, I know very little about Iowa. I've been to Iowa, just to Des Moines, and they improved 15 spots. Again, just like Colorado went down 15, Iowa improved by 15. They were originally 42nd in the bottom 10, right, of this list. And now they've jumped up to 27th. So I don't know what's going on with Iowa. My first instinct would be, let's look to the biggest cities in Iowa and see what's going on. The only thing I know about Des Moines is, if I'm not mistaken, that's where a heck of a lot of insurance companies are. So Iowa would be another one that I'd want to check and see what's going on with the market there in terms of the desirability of folks moving. Next on our list, let's see. That's kind of interesting. So here's another state that improved by 16. They were 50th in 2015. So right down there at the bottomest of the list. And now they're up to number 34, an improvement of 16 spots. It's Virginia. And I'm not real sure. I've been to Virginia, beautiful country. Don't know much about what's going on there. And I have actually had people ask me to do stuff relating to Virginia, mostly in Reston. So there you go. Let's see what else on our list. Here's another one that dropped by a huge margin. Delaware was 25th, dropped down to 42nd for a change of 17, a decrease in desirability of 17. So what do you do with this data, right? Well, I've already made suggestions in terms of just letting this be an indication of where you might want to look next if you're looking for that next place that's showing signs of growing or that is starting to grow based on these numbers. I mean, those are some pretty dramatic, and I'd particularly start with looking at these ones that have had dramatic improvements, as we already discussed. But what would you do next? If I was looking at doing this, and this is the process I went through when I started looking more closely at Arizona, I would actually start subscribing to or getting the RSS feed for big newspapers in those areas. So Phoenix is a good example. I would start consuming Arizona News. I would start consuming what was one of our big. I would start consuming Iowa News. Find out what's going on. What are the biggest industries in these states, and where are these industries tending to be located? You can find out all kinds of interesting stuff from the Census Bureau and find out what has been going on there. All the major industries you can talk to or just visit. The Chamber of Commerce for these various states to get sort of a broad view of what the state is about in terms of what they see as their draw, why people move there, the biggest industries that employ people, those types of things. And you'll be looking for those kinds of changes. And oftentimes you may find you're able to explain some of these things in terms that don't necessarily then sound like a encouragement to invest, right? Maybe it was some one-off thing that happened that for whatever reason, artificially it boosted the number of folks who were likely to migrate there, but isn't something that's likely to be sustainable over the course of years, right? So check it out, see what you think, and let these numbers at least serve as additional information in your toolbox to make the best possible decisions. Now let's go ahead and run down the list of the 10 worst states. And again, this one's going to be interesting because of the states that are on it. So often some of these states are thought of as so desirable, so sexy, with such amazing markets that when people realize where they sit in terms of desirability of people moving there, it can be very surprising. So some of them aren't so surprising, but let's jump in and take a look. So at number 40, we have Minnesota. down 1. It was 39 in 2015. Number 41 this year is Oklahoma. Was 40 last year, so it got one worse than it was last year. And then we have Delaware. We already talked about Delaware. Delaware came in at 42nd. It was 25th in 2015, so it was down 17. Maryland, being Maryland and being absolutely consistent, has moved 0 spots, continuing to hold on to that 43rd spot in terms of ranking for where people are moving. West Virginia is coming in at number 44. It's down 3, so it was at 41 in 2015. And then the next 3 states are all at the same place they were last year. Michigan, New Jersey, and New York are 45th, 46th, and 47th. And I remember, I think 2 years ago, New Jersey was actually the most moved away from state. So it's actually doing better than it was, I think, in 2014. Pennsylvania is number 48. It was number 49 last year, so good on you, Pennsylvania. You're up 1. California is the second worst at 49. It was 44th, so it's gotten worse in comparison to other states. And think about that for a second. In terms of people, there are more people moving away from California. Think about the markets that exist here that are nuts, mine included. San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, all kinds of areas that are nuts. And the desirability or how it's ranking and where people move is the second worst in the nation. Pretty amazing. That's the kind of stuff that makes me realize how getting those inside scoops, really paying attention to data that relates to your investment efforts is important, and not necessarily just going for the shiny thing or what all the headlines tell you are the shiny thing, because that's an interesting challenge to the theories of sustainability for the marketplaces in California. All right, the worst, the 50th in terms of its ranking with other states, Illinois. Comes in at number 50. It was 49th last year, so it got one worse than last year. And it took over that worst spot from Virginia, which saw a 16-spot increase, which was on our list of biggest increases. So there you have it. Whether this has revealed a state that you are surprised is not interesting to folks, or revealed a state that is interesting to folks that you wouldn't have originally thought of, or if maybe one of the others we pulled out that have had the biggest change in their desirability or in their ranking with other states in terms of destinations, maybe one of those is ready for you to take a look at and see if your investment strategy might not work there. Now, as always, folks, my number one goal is to provide you more value in terms of what we've brought up than the time you've spent to listen to the show. And I hope that was true today. I hope it's at least great fuel for the mind for you to go out and look into more things and make some better decisions. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you all next time.